Welcome to Fast Talk. I'm Chris Clark, President and CEO of the Queen Creek Chamber of Commerce. Today we're joined by Tyler Hudgins of Santan Valley Incorporate, STV Incorporate. And Tyler will be talking to us today about the latest efforts to incorporate the Santan Valley region. Welcome, Tyler.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
So tell us a little bit about what it means to incorporate and what's that process look like?
Yeah, so the incorporation process is essentially citizens getting together and wanting to see an area that currently isn't managed as a city and town, but is an unincorporated area. And so citizens get together and say, hey, we'd like to see something change in our community, and work with enough petition signatures. They have to get 10% of the registered voters, and if they get enough of those, it can be issued to the ballot, and citizens can have the vote to be able to decide what do they want for the future. Do they want to be a city? Do they want to maintain being unincorporated? And so that's really the goal behind incorporation.
And so just to back up even a little bit more, so incorporated versus unincorporated. So you're either a municipality or you're subject to the county supervision. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. So Santan Valley currently is unincorporated. We are managed by the Pinal County Board of Supervisors, and so they currently are the government entity that would be over Santan Valley.
And the difficulty then is that you're sort of lumped together with a huge geographic area. Is that part of what's going on?
Yeah, so the Pinal County Board of Supervisors currently represents an area the size of Connecticut. So it's a large geographical area, and Santan Valley makes up a portion of that. And so they manage the entire county, and Santan Valley has just become a very large non-unincorporated area. We currently, according to U.S. Census data, have 91,000 residents. That number has actually jumped up to about 100,000 if we take into account the last few years of.
So right now you have a tentative map, right? It's not set in stone. Is that correct?
So we've actually recently finalized our map. We originally, when we started out this process about a year ago, we rolled out a map that was going to be an area for context to have conversation. And we hosted about 6 town halls, inviting the community in Santan Valley to come speak into the process. We are a nonprofit. We have a board of 7 people. I'm one of those and the chairman of the board. And we never wanted to be a small group of people making decisions for 100,000 people. We wanted to be open and transparent, provide the opportunity for the public to be able to engage in that process. And so those town halls was the initial step to saying, hey, give us some feedback. Do you want to be a part of the map? What does it look like? What other changes could we make? We went through that whole process. And now in 2024, nearly a year later, we have finalized that map.
So the map that we see on the website, which by the way is, what's the address?
For
the website.
Oh, santanvalleyinc.com.
So that map that we see there is pretty much what you're collecting signatures on. So that's going to be what it is?
The map that is currently, there's an interactive map where residents can put in their address. That map is the correct boundaries. We have an older map, the original map, in a PDF version that people can view the changes in that. And then we're currently in the process of issuing an update with Santan Valley Incorporation as far as our timeline and all that stuff.
Because recently you had to reset the timeline a little bit, is that correct? So yeah. We would have been on the November 2024 ballot, so the one that's coming up with the presidential choices on there. Mm-hmm. But instead you're going to be in May?
So so correct. We were originally in November 2024 ballot. We ran into some issues that we needed to address with the state land department, with some state lands that were within our map. And so now we are looking to August 2025 as our tentative deadline.
August.
Part of that has to be some flexibility because part of the process is that the Pinal County Board of Supervisors, they are working with the state land department to entitle some of the state lands that will be within our map. And so dependent on when they finalize that process, it's a public process and that sort of thing, we will be able to figure out the exact deadline, but our aim is August 2025.
So right now, you now have your map finalized, You're working on those entitlements for the state trust land. What comes next?
Yeah, so the next step where we are is we are, again, finalizing just those conversations with the State Land Department, Pinal County. We're going to be doing a next round of town halls. We're rolling out an updated timeline. What are all the triggers that need to follow so citizens can follow in the process? And so we'll be issuing a press release update on all that. And then we're doing another round of town halls to discuss the finalized map, continue to involve citizens in the process. And then once the entitlement is finalized, which we're hoping July, August, then we will be able to go to the Pinal County Board of Supervisors to get an official approval to be able to start collecting petitions. But before that happens, Mesa and Gilbert will be having a resolution to vote to support or potentially veto incorporation. We have no indications that either one would veto the effort. And so those have to happen before we get the approval from the Pinal County Board of Supervisors. Once we get those approvals, we'll be able to start circulating our petitions and getting the required number of signatures that we'll need, which will be about a 6-month process.
And why do you have to have Gilbert and Mesa involved?
So originally it used to be that any city within 6 miles of an incorporated map boundary has the ability to weigh in on incorporation. After the last effort, there was some legislation that was passed that any city within 6 miles and has a population greater than the incorporating municipality would be able to veto. And so in that case, the only entities that are within 6 miles and over 100,000 people are Mesa and Gilbert.
Right. So, this is the 4th attempt, I think.
Yeah, the 4th or 5th, yeah.
To incorporate. So, I think in 2004 or 5, there was a problem getting enough signatures. And then it was something like 2010, I think, where Florence said no because of there'll be some effect on state shared revenue, right, for the surrounding municipalities if Santan Valley incorporates. So it actually affects all of the municipalities, but primarily the ones close by had the veto power, as you just mentioned, the 6 miles, right? So then that was changed so that the population had to be bigger, which puts us where we are now with just potentially Mesa and Gilbert weighing in.
Yeah, it's never gone to a public vote. So the citizens of Santan Valley have never had the ability to make the decision. Typically, incorporation has been halted in the case of Santan Valley with outside interests before the citizens could be able to vote on the effort. Our desire is just to present to the public an opportunity to say, what do we want for our future? Is it to incorporate into a city? Is it to remain unincorporated? And so we're excited about the prospects of incorporation.
And so Queen Creek doesn't fit because our population is just a little bit less than that. But in the last 2 or 3 efforts, Queen Creek did pass a resolution supporting the incorporation effort.
Yeah.
So should be good to go there, even if it is just moral support. But
yeah, Queen Creek is about 60,000 residents. And Queen Creek did pass a resolution 7-0 to support the incorporation of Santan Valley this time around, and we're greatly appreciative, and we look forward to the opportunity of incorporating and being able to work on important issues such as transportation, which is a critical issue that needs to be addressed out here.
Right. So along with incorporation comes the ability to self-plan and self-manage. But that comes at a cost. And what does that look like?
Yeah. I think the opportunity is really to look forward to our future. And I think, all of us we came to Santan Valley for a reason. And whether we like it or not, Santan Valley is changing. 100,000 people is not a small percentage of people. And so The longer we wait, the more that growth will continue to dictate our future, and we'll have less control over those decisions. And so by incorporating, it gives us the ability to put local leadership in place. Currently being managed by the Pinal County Board of Supervisors. We have one representative that actually lives in our community. And so, if we were to incorporate, we would have 7 who live in this area, know this area, really care about this area. Not that any of the supervisors in Pinal County don't. It just provides leadership that's really close to the people. And then for the community to be able to decide what things do we want to retain about our character that matters, rather than just having unmanaged growth and that character eroding over time. The other thing is Pinal County was never set up to manage a city of 100,000 people. And so for them to continue to do that is going to become increasingly more difficult, especially when they're representing other parts of the county. And you have other supervisors that are making decisions for Santan Valley residents. And then the other thing is Santan residents are paying taxes that are going to other parts of the state. And their money's not coming back to the community that they live in. It's not focused on the roads that they drive every day, and that sort of thing. And so by incorporating, it would provide the opportunity for about $51.3 million that Santan Valley residents are paying through their income tax, their state sales tax, gas tax, other things to come back to Santan Valley to focus on the issues that need to be addressed in Santan Valley. So it's going to give residents a lot more local control and the ability to determine how to resolve the complex issues that are currently in Santan Valley.
All right, a lot of good points there, particularly about being able to set up the municipal government. So whether it's a city or a town and having a town council or a city council versus just having Supervisor Goodman, who does a great job looking out for the area, but is just one of several voices. And then you mentioned the tax issue. So taxes that are currently being paid in Santan Valley, if there's a more pressing need in Maricopa or Casa Grande, the money is shuttled over there first and then back around to Santan Valley. So having a municipal government then allows for more control over where those tax dollars goes. But I guess the question then though is then we need additional government services and support and things like that. So that comes at a cost. Do we have projections yet on what that might be?
Yeah, most definitely. So we've looked into that and we've tried to look at it from the lens of we are the team looking to incorporate Santan Valley. By no means will we have any government authority as the incorporation committee. And so we can't draft the budget. We could, but that doesn't mean that anybody who comes into the leadership of Santan Valley would follow that. And so the question that we're trying to answer, which is what you're trying to hit on, is could Santan Valley be viable with the municipal government? And so we've drafted an operating expenses, like minimally required operating expenses, kind of a sheet that kind of just shows, okay, we know we're going to get $51.3 million of state shared revenue that Santan Valley residents are already paying. And so that'll come to the municipality. And the question is, are we viable? And so we've looked at what do we need to operate? Well, we're going to have police protection. We're going to have city staff. We're going to have a city manager. We have to have a city clerk. We have to have a location where residents can come and meet with their government. And so we have to rent some space somewhere. And we're going to have a legal representation, like a city town attorney. There's just certain things like that. And then also, if you're setting up and operating an office, you're going to have the expenses like computers and printers and hardware and all that stuff to get set up. And so of the $51.3 million of the minimally required expenses that we would need to get started, that cost is around $25 million, which would leave $26 million. And that $25 million that we have looked at, we've padded it. And so we want to make sure if we were wrong on some of these projections, we have a little bit extra to just make sure that, if there was some error. An instance of that is we've got a quote from the sheriff's office for about 10 million. We padded it at 15 million just to make sure that we would have the expenses covered. And so we're trying to just make sure that, hey, we're viable. If there were more additional expenses, that still leaves about 25, 26 million left that a future municipality could look at and how to spend those dollars best for Santan Valley residents.
One question that came to my mind, I'm sure many of our viewers would be that 10 million, 15 million for Pinal County Sheriff. Does that maintain the level of service, or does it potentially increase the level of service?
Maintains the level of service.
And then rural metro would still be subscription based for a while?
Yeah, I mean, any government authority that comes in could make certain decisions. Rural metro seems like to me, the likeliest option and most cost-effective option. And so I would imagine that would be an option. Otherwise, you'd have to contract with other surrounding cities.
So I think, based on the things that you've talked about, and then having been a resident out here since the first effort, or what I think is the first effort, I think one of the things that we've always had a concern about was the land planning and use. And you touched on that briefly. And whether or not Santan Valley is viable, which right now you still have enough vacant land to turn industrial, to turn into employment and retail. Mm-hmm. But if it gets platted for houses, then you lose that tax base, and that's pretty much the end of the story at that point. So
yeah,
it's getting in front while you still have that vacant land.
Yeah, so yeah, trying to get out in front of it. Right now, we're already behind the curve. I mean, honestly, this should have happened a decade ago. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. And so it's essential that we get this done, in our opinion. Right now, Santan Valley has missed out on a lot of benefits of the development of single family and the fees that would have been collected for those developments. And so you can't go back in time. And so Santan Valley is essentially a bedroom community. We have not very much commercial, not very much industrial. And so when we were working with the state land department and looking at getting some of the lands entitled, it was important for us to do that. Because we don't want to just get this thing passed to get it passed and just say, okay, we did what we wanted to do. But it's important for us that whoever leads this thing in the next phase, that their hands are not bound in a very impossible situation with no opportunity for commercial, no opportunity for industrial. And so that's why we took the time, even though it delayed our effort, to negotiate with the state land department to figure out how to get these lands entitled, because in our opinion, these lands, the state lands, are essential for commercial and industrial development. And so we know we need to diversify our tax base, really to set up this municipality for success.
That's an interesting point that a lot of people don't realize. They'll talk about fighting over the existing shopping center or 7-Eleven or whatever it is, but it's really the open land where the opportunities are, where you pick up the impact fees, the construction sales tax, things like that, especially on large projects. So
yeah,
it's more about where can you build those sorts of things, with most of the opportunity coming to the east, and I guess to a lesser extent to the north, but with whatever is happening over at the links and places like that. But what would happen to those projects that are already like breaking ground or moving dirt or things like that? Those would already be grandfathered out? Yeah,
so whatever is already in place would pass on to the future municipality. There's an existing case with previous case that shows that with the Home Builders Association, the town of Maricopa, that basically a ruling came down that whatever was agreed to previously with the county would automatically pass on to a future municipality. And so anything that's currently in place, that's already been agreed on, Santan Valley would have to carry forward.
And so no additional taxes or fees or anything on that particular?
Yeah, whatever has already been agreed with, yeah.
So back to your issue about urgency, the faster that you can get this through, the better off it's going to be for the future municipality.
Yeah.
I guess the final thing that comes up a lot is water. and what can be done in those regards. Have you guys looked at that?
Yeah, so Santan Valley has had major issues with water previously in the past. And with Johnson Utilities specifically, there was a recent article about a month ago in the Arizona Republic that really showed that the water supply, the infrastructure was not taken care of, had high levels of nitrate and other terrible things in the water system. Money that was being collected was not being reinvested into the infrastructure, so much so that the Arizona Corporation Commission had to come in and force the sale of that company to EPCOR. And we're very thankful that EPCOR has come in and has reinvested the dollars that they got from that process, as well as their own money in that, to fix a lot of the issues. It was so bad that there was sewage coming up in the streets for Santan Valley residents. With the high levels of nitrate and other things in the water, I mean, that's just a public health crisis. And we think having a municipal government to look out for the interests of the people is important, and especially in the topic of water.
And so you would have a regulatory body right there that's looking out for the best interest of the community.
Yeah, that could advocate for the community and do what needs to be done. And we have confidence in EPCOR and what they've done. We appreciate it.
It certainly seems to be better than it was
Yes.
just a few years ago.
Yeah.
Well, Tyler, thank you so much for being here today. Anything that we haven't touched on yet that you would like to bring up?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I would just bring up is 98% of our residents commute out of Santan Valley to other places to get to work. And so that, on top of not having a lot of good transportation and roads and not a thought out process for that, it's a big problem. And the roads are not safe. And so we want to look at the opportunities that we have in the future to fix the transportation issue. We also want to provide not only a place to work, but a place for citizens to be able to recreate, to have parks, to be able to dine, eat in restaurants, and that sort of thing. And so we want to address all those things. We think they're important. A common concern is, with Incorporation, there's automatically assumption that taxes are going to go up. And in our view, a city council could pass a sales tax for the municipality. But citizens are already paying that because they're having to go elsewhere to other cities to be able to pay for groceries, to go out to restaurants, to buy whatever they need. And that money is not coming back to Santan Valley to fix their roads and their neighborhoods and those sort of things. And so that could happen. We don't think that a property tax is very likely. From 1980 to about 2010, there's been 16 municipalities that have incorporated. Only 2 have issued a primary property tax. Only 2 have done a secondary property tax. And so that's not very likely. In addition to that, a council could not make that decision to institute a property tax. That would have to go out to a vote to the voters. And so we think with the money that we talked about earlier, with our budget, we have enough to get the city rolling, get started. And we think that it's important to reinvest the dollars that Santan Valley residents are paying already. No taxation without representation is the old saying. And right now, 18% of Santan Valley residents' income tax, their state sales tax, their gas tax, all those things are being sent to other cities. And they're paying for other cities' roads and improvements and those sort of things, while Santan Valley is not getting the improvements that it needs. And so we just feel as citizens that we want to come together, love our community, and do what's best for our community. And we really believe that Incorporation provides the vehicle to be able to do that.
And for being here, we really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.